The Nintendo Switch has some pretty good JRPGs, and in this video, Miss Bubbles and I are going to count down the 10 best. What are your favorite Switch JRPGs? Leave a comment and let us know, because if you don't, Miss Bubbles is going to get angry and she'll do this to you.
I'll literally kill you like this.
So, how about we talk about some Switch JRPGs, huh?
Hello friends of the gaming shelf, it's Miss Bubbles. Thank you Taylor so much for inviting me to share my top 5 JRPG picks for the Nintendo Switch. My first pick happens to be the game that I'm currently obsessed with, and that is Room Factory 5. I'm fairly new to the Room Factory franchise, with 4 being my first, but I had my gripes with it, mainly with how difficult it was to figure out the trigger system. Don't get me wrong, it was amazing but a bit confusing at times. However, Room Factory 5 changes things for the better, which makes it perfect. Many find it difficult to get into farming games, so this might be your way into it. The gameplay is more welcoming because Xseed Games combines farming mechanics with JRPG elements including monster fighting and monster taming. Here you find yourself in Rigbarth because surprise surprise, you fainted and you lost your memory. Quickly enough, you become a member of the Seed organization and must help the townsfolk uncover different mysteries. The gist of Room Factory 5 is enjoying a plethora of skills like walking, funny enough, mining, fighting, farming, cooking, crafting, and more, giving you lots of activities to enjoy. In addition to that, you have a selection of bachelors and bachelorettes to choose from, and you can eventually date and get married to them. I feel this game is a must-have JRPG on the Nintendo Switch. Yes, the graphics aren't the best here, but to me, and I emphasize to me, it never hindered my experience. So I really hope that you give it a chance.
I'm pretty sure I would have been burned at the stake if we didn't include at least one Xenoblade game on this list, so the best one in my opinion is Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Now this is the remake slash remaster of the epic Wii RPG. It has a huge scope, massive world, and for a Wii game and even a Nintendo Switch game, it's pretty ambitious. Now I think what really hooks a lot of people is the great cast of characters and the plot with so many twists and turns that you just want to keep playing. A few hours in, there's just all these mysteries that come up, and to me, that's what kept me going throughout the game. Is I wanted to figure out what was happening, like who is this person really? How are we gonna figure out this mystery? It was really fantastic up until the very end with that crazy ending that, of course, I won't spoil. It has a really unique combat system that you don't really see in a lot of RPGs, especially single player ones, where it has all these moves on cooldowns that kind of plays like an MMO, and it keeps you on your toes as you're trying to constantly make sure all your moves are going in the right way. Not to mention there's tons of gear and ways you can visually customize your characters, which I love in RPGs, so I'm so glad it was here in Xenoblade. And as far as the Definitive Edition, it has amazing upgraded visuals, a map that you can actually use, and is really helpful for doing side quests and just exploring the world, not to mention brand new content in the epilogue. And of course, it also has some incredible music, so if you haven't played this game on Nintendo Switch, you absolutely should. It's easily one of the best on the system.
Monster Hunter Stories 2 caught me off guard because I'm still new to the turn-based genre, but this one was very easy for me to get into and I freaking loved it. This game follows a rock, paper, scissors formula, so once you understand the system, everything gets easier. You explore this semi-open world full of unique monsters, some of which you have the ability to become friends with. In addition to that, you have the dungeon side of things where you fight some monsters, find an egg, take it home, hatch it, and obtain a new monster friend. To me though, one of the best parts of this game is the real human partners that you meet along the way. When you're in battle with them, you can join forces and execute these amazing combat sequences that are a joy to watch, and they deal extreme damage to the enemy. Now the enemies have multiple weakness points and your job is to figure them out so you can take them down easier. You have different monster friends to tame, each with their own unique abilities in combat as well as while exploring the map. Some can fly, some can swim, some can climb, and this is all required for you to reach different hidden areas in the world. Oh, and by the way, the story is pretty intriguing. I won't mention it because I don't want to spoil anything, but all in all, if you're looking for the perfect bundle of gameplay and story, Monster Hunter Stories 2 is the pick for you.
Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana is one of the best action JRPGs of the last decade, and it's perfectly at home on the Nintendo Switch. It has such a fast, fluid combat system. There's so much fun exploring to do on the island, whether you're going through the jungles or along the beaches, and it's really great to find the different castaways to help build up your camp. There's a really addictive quality to that, trying to find all the different people, upgrade all the shops, and get your camp set up exactly the way you want. Not to mention those epic boss fights that just keep getting better and better as the game goes on. And to me, Ys 8 is the perfect pick up and play JRPG, and that's why I feel like it's so at home with Nintendo Switch, because you could play it on your TV and get that big screen experience, or you could play it in handheld, knock out a couple side quests, explore for a little bit in handheld mode, and it's just perfect for that. On top of great gameplay, it actually has a really fantastic story about this shipwrecked ship and all these castaways trying to get back home, but also the flashback scenes with Donna and her amazing story and how her and Adol are connected. It's really intriguing and really fantastic. And of course, we can't forget to mention that incredible soundtrack, highlighted with the best song from the game, Sunshine Coastline, which is probably playing right now. It's the perfect tropical meets adventure song. I don't know, it just fits the vibe of this game so perfectly. Now, honestly, I wanted to put Ys 9 in this spot, but it didn't run great on Nintendo Switch, and Ys 8 ran a little bit better. But nonetheless, Ys 8 is a fantastic game that if you don't have on Nintendo Switch, you absolutely should.
Fire Emblem Three Houses completely surprised me, and it gave me everything that I was looking for at the time when I started playing it. You play as Byleth, a male or female professor, and choose to mentor one of 3 houses. Each house has its own leader, cast of students, background, story, and goals. But what made me interested the most is the added slice of life element. Here you have this game that encourages tactical combat with managing your days, improving relationships with your students, training them, fishing, growing plants, and so much more. I found it very easy to understand how the combat works, but I of course turned off permadeath because I don't know about you, I get attached to my characters and I don't want to see any of them die. I enjoy the shift between a 3D world when you're executing day-to-day activities around the monastery and then going to this top-down tactical field. And on the battlefield, you're in charge of every student's move and you have objectives to complete along the way. As you finish these, you progress in the story and learn more about your students. This was certainly a magical time for me to have, and with 3 houses for you to uncover and see, I cannot recommend this enough.
In my opinion, Triangle Strategy is one of the best strategy RPGs in the last decade. Now, it has a deceptively simple plot, but it has pretty complex characters. And to me, that's what hooked me with the story is, it's these warring factions, but then it's all these little mini stories and these different ways that they're betraying each other or you're building up alliances, where in a lot of strategy RPGs, I kind of get lost in the politics stuff of it, but with this, it was really easy to understand and really gripping. And Triangle Strategy also has this unique feature where you have scales decide your fate, and you try to convince your team members to make a decision that dramatically changes the fate of the game. Whether you do one or the other can affect where the story goes and even what party members you have on your team. But of course, to me, the real star of the show is the deep immersive combat. To me, it's always so satisfying to come up with the perfect strategy to execute on a certain battle, whether it's trying to keep a character alive, taking out a particular boss, or just defeating everybody on the field. I loved coming up with these perfect little strategies, teaming up people in this corner and that corner and how they can pair together. And also there's a really simple yet deep character customization system where every character has a set role, but you can upgrade them little bits here and there. You can upgrade their classes, you can upgrade little things like more HP, more damage, things like that. And also it has that incredible visual style from Octopath Traveler. There's the perfect combination of classic, 16-bit JRPGs, but also modern niceties with the HD visuals, the particle effects and whatnot. It's a real shame that it's taken this long to get a strategy RPG of this quality to get released, especially from Square Enix, where it's sitting on all these amazing IP like Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics. But nonetheless, Triangle Strategy is an absolutely fantastic game that everyone who owns a Nintendo Switch needs to play.
The Atelier franchise has been a blast for me to get into, and Sophie 2 definitely did not disappoint. You follow Sophie on her way to find her lost friend and meet new people, which makes the journey so fun. This is a turn-based game where you have to study your moves during combat, but what makes it so easy to get into is the fact that you can tailor the difficulty level to make this welcoming for you. Now, surprisingly enough, as someone who usually plays on easy, I was playing this on normal. Life doesn't offer me the luxury of playing hard games, so if you're like me, you have the flexibility to choose. Enemies have elements they're weak to, and you can also see which of your team members will get hit next, and this lets you be strategic with your next move and have things like twin actions to deal extraordinary attacks, swap characters to block, and use unique skills and items to take down the enemy. Speaking of items, this is where something called synthesis comes to play. Synthesis takes you to a special panel to create items, choose the elements that you want them to have, level up, and make even stronger items, which are all very crucial for you in this game. But anything you want to make requires ingredients, so you have to explore the world and gather them. Sophie 2 also introduces the weather mechanic to use for your own advantage during combat or to overcome obstacles while traversing the map. This is a fun JRPG with a beautiful story, fun and light puzzle mechanics, and an amazing combat system.
In my opinion, Octopath Traveler is not only an incredible JRPG, but it has maybe one of the best turn-based combat systems ever. For one, it's incredibly engaging. You're constantly trying to find weaknesses to exploit in the enemy. It's super fast, it's super fun, and also when you hit those bosses, there's those locks that you need to break, so trying to figure that out is also extra satisfying and always keeps you on your toes, while keeping that balance of fast yet still compelling and strategically interesting. And what helps that even more is the deep character customization. Now each character starts out with a class, but you can give them a secondary class and learn abilities from all these different classes, mix them up, and get the team exactly the way you want. And to me, that was so much fun to build this incredible team just the way I wanted, and to see my strategy be executed in the battles themselves was incredibly satisfying. Now Octopath Traveler does something a little bit different. It doesn't have one overarching story, but instead many character stories for all the 8 different characters. Now a lot of people didn't like this approach, but for me, I personally did. It felt kind of fresh, and it made sure that none of the character stories overstayed its welcome. There were some that were obviously stronger than others, but to me, the one I loved most was Ophelia, and how she's trying to do right by her family and how she just tries to help people. It was very sweet, and I really enjoyed her character. And of course, Octopath Traveler has an absolutely magical soundtrack. Everything from the opening theme, battle themes, or different character themes, they were all incredible, and honestly, it might be one of my favorite gaming soundtracks of all time. Here's hoping we get a sequel sometime soon, and no, I'm not talking about that mobile game, because Octopath Traveler totally deserves it.
And my final pick would definitely be Witcher 3. Oh, wait, this is a JRPG channel, I'm sorry. All jokes aside, my final pick would be Trials of Mana. This is a charming gem that was initially released in 1995, when I was born, but got a 3D remake recently. You choose a party of 3 characters, each with their distinct abilities, fighting style, and story. Then off you go trying to prevent evil from being unleashed and destroying the world. Combat is fast-paced and follows a real-time approach, and you have to go from area to area to progress the story, fight enemies along the way, and some of them, of course, are gonna be easy, while others will get increasingly difficult. What I like the most is that each character you pick is so different in their fighting style, making the experience you go through your own. Not only that, but you also get so many different party variations to experiment with, and it really makes your journey something that is unique to you. The world to me is beautiful to explore. Yes, the graphics are by no means groundbreaking, but I still found beauty in the areas I got to see. So if you're searching for an interesting story, intriguing cast, and fluid combat, definitely check out Trials of Mana. JRPGs have been a beautiful experience for me to get into, so I'm so happy that I got to be here to share my own top 5 picks for the Nintendo Switch. Thank you again so much, Taylor, for having me, and I hope to see you next time.
And probably to no one's surprise, we have Dragon Quest XI. This is your classic style JRPG with a modern look and quality of life features. Now the story is simple, if not also a little cliche, with a character destined to save the world and on an adventure to go save the world, but it has an incredible cast of diverse characters that all felt really real, and honestly it might be one of my favorites of all time when it comes to video games. Some of my favorites include Sylvando, who has this big flamboyant personality, but it gets to the core of why he's like that as the game goes on, which I found really compelling, as well as Jade, who you find out is kind of related to the main character, but also has this really interesting arc to her character as well. Not to mention, this game just looks absolutely gorgeous. It takes that Akira Toriyama inspired art style, takes it to the next level, and in HD, the first real HD Dragon Quest game, and it looks incredible. Now on Nintendo Switch, it does take a little bit of a hit compared to the PC and PS4 version, but the fact that it has so many other features really elevates it and makes it a little bit more forgivable. Now some of these new features include the orchestral soundtrack and not that old MIDI soundtrack, which is highly welcomed. Not to mention the 2D mode, which the PS4 version never got till later, as well as extra side story content for characters and epilogues. And also the combat system, in my opinion, is a little bit simple, so it was great that they increased the speed in the Switch version, or at least to give you the option to increase the speed. And this is the only way to play it handheld in English. Overall, I think this is probably the best way to experience this masterpiece, so if you haven't already, what are you doing? Get on Dragon Quest XI on Nintendo Switch. I promise that you won't regret it. Now, if you want to hear about some of the best PlayStation JRPGs, make sure you check out this video right here. And if you haven't already, make sure you go subscribe to Miss Bubbles. She's got an awesome channel. She does great videos about cozy games, JRPGs, life simulators. I promise that you'll love her content. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.